Hey party people, what's up? Today is an exciting day. I'm gonna give you a lot of information on the planning calendar for your engagement in 2020 and all the things that you need to do over the course of a 12-month engagement so you can stay on track with your planning process and that you're taking care of all the big details. Let's jump right in. Okay guys, if you're new to my channel, I'm Valerie Gernhauser, owner of Sapphire Events and Ruby and Pearl Events based in New Orleans. I've been in the wedding industry for almost a decade and I'm bringing you all of the information and tips and tricks you need to know to plan your wedding and get you across the finish line, setting you up for success. What are the things that you need to plan for over the course of a year or more? So let's touch on the things that I talked about in my last video and the first things that you should do right when you get engaged. That includes finding out your guest count, your target budget range, then coming up with your price per person, and then drawing up a spreadsheet of where your budget line items should be, the thresholds that each one of those things should cost you based on that price per person that you've come up with to calculate how much your wedding is actually going to cost you. You should be able to draw up a spreadsheet that will tell you exactly where you should land on these thresholds for each one of your vendor categories moving forward. So then you're going to book your planner or your event manager, you're going to book your venue and then get a date, you're going to book your photographer or videographer, your caterer if your venue doesn't already have one included, and your entertainment. These big 5 things you're gonna book first. Let's start then when we're looking at the whole planning calendar for the entire engagement process. Let's start at 12 plus months. Engaging a year or more for an engagement period. I'll tell you where this might vary slightly if your engagement is a little bit shorter, because there are plenty of people that get engaged for 6 months before their big day. We do that all the time. We've already covered the big things: getting your guest count in order, finding out what your target budget range is, determining who your planner or event manager is going to be and talking with them first, and doing your venue selection, catering, photography, videography, entertainment, booking all of those things first. That is really, really key to do right away. And once you've done all of those things, then you're naturally going to experience a bit of a lull in the planning process, and that is perfectly normal. Don't sweat the small stuff. A lull is normal and natural because you're going to need a little bit of a breather for the next step in the planning process. So then next, in the 9 to 12 months before the big day, these are the things that you should try to accomplish within this 3-month time period. After you've booked the big 5, this is what you should do next. Start thinking about hotel blocks. Lean on your planner or event manager to do this for you because they can really help get you your contracts, send them right over to you, approve the rates, and get you set up right away. It's going to save you so much time and frustration. So I really recommend doing this at the 9-month mark. Now, a thing about hotel blocks, many hotel properties are not even going to touch a wedding block until you are at the 9-month mark. So as eager as you might be to get hotels booked right away, hotels are not really interested in reserving their inventory, their rooms, more than a year out. That's inventory that they could be using to sell to larger corporate events. Don't worry, your guests are not trying to book their hotel rooms at 12 months out. You've got some time. Once you've had the hotel properties sort of figured out and get the ball rolling on the room block situation at 9 to 12 months out, you also want to think about where you will be getting ready on the day of. You need to make sure that there's enough square footage. If you're getting hair and makeup done, you're gonna need a lot of access to natural light for your artist to really do their very best work, for your photographer to come in and shoot prep if that's something that you have them contracted for. These things are all things to consider for your prep suite, but you wanna figure that out, the logistics that you're gonna plan later on with transportation and where your photographer is going to be and whether you need a second shooter or not and where you're gonna do your first look. All of these things are going to hinge upon where the two of you are during the prep process. And then next, in this 9 to 12 month mark, what you want to think about is booking your transportation. You don't want to be booking transportation too close to the date because fleets, especially on very popular wedding dates, will get booked up very far in advance. And when you run out of buses, you run out of buses. How are you going to move people from point A to point B? Once you figured out where your guests are going to be staying, once you figure out where you and your partner are going to be getting ready, and then you obviously know the ceremony and the reception location by now, you can then go ahead and book your transportation. And now if you don't want to provide transportation to all of your guests, which is not necessary to do in this day and age with Uber and Lyft and all of the ride sharing apps available, you definitely want to consider how you're going to get from point A to point B. And think not just about yourself and your partner, but your parents or your immediate family members and your wedding party and also their dates. So try and get a head count on how many people just in that group that you're going to move if you don't want to worry about the entire totality of the guest count, that's fine. In the meantime, while you're doing all of these things and taking action on transportation and hotels and prep location logistics, you can actually start the process of researching your decor elements, what things that you want to be included in the overall event scape of the day. So research things that you like and things that you don't like. What you don't like is just as informative as what you like. So if you have a hard time articulating what it is that you really want, you might have an easier time finding things that you definitely want to cross off the list, things that you don't like. These things are very informative notes to take on your journey to creating the design aesthetic for your big day. So make note of these things right now as you're developing what it is that's going to make sense in your space. So now we're continuing on to what happens 6 to 9 months out from the event date. What things are we going to book during this time period? 6 to 9 months out is a large amount of time that your wedding planner is going to spend developing the design presentation process, which in our company, we present at the 6-month out mark from your big day. So in the months leading up to that, we take the logistical information from our foundation meeting, getting to know our clients' needs and wants, and we incorporate that into the overall design experience that we're going to end up presenting to our clients. In developing this, we're also working on the back end with our creative team of vendors and our suppliers to develop the design for our presentation and all of the nuts and bolts that go into that. We will be communicating on behalf of our clients with their florists, rental company, lighting, and production companies, these essential key players into making the overall design of the event really come to life. Before we get to the point of actually presenting our design, what we're doing is asking our clients to then pay a deposit and assign a contract to these same vendors. If you are planning on your own and you're wondering when you should be booking these vendors, you should at least reserve florists, rental companies, and production companies by reserving the date on their books and paying a deposit, which is a nominal fee that will be applied to your overall proposal once those design details are finalized. Do that as soon as you have found the person that you want to use for your florist or your rental company or anything else in those design related elements. Pay that deposit, and then as you develop your overall design vision, you're going to solidify that design with each one of those creative team of vendors closer to the date, and your goal is going to be to hit that mark at about the 6-month mark. Remember that what we've said before is that you don't really want a planner to take you around town shopping you to 3 different vendors in every given category. That is a huge use of your time, and it's also not the most efficient way to go about the planning process. So what your planner's actually going to be doing while they develop all of this research and work behind the scenes on your behalf is collecting all of this information over a period of time so that when they sit down with you in the design presentation at the 6-month mark, then they'll be able to answer all of your questions and goals and then have a working proposal with each of these vendors to edit after the design presentation is over and solidify numbers and design ideas and tweak and change things here and there once you've had time to discuss what the overall vision is going to be for your big day. The essential elements of this design plan presentation that you'll be given by your wedding planner include time spent drafting the floor plan, measuring at the venue, making sure that everything is to scale so that we have allotted enough space for service area, for the footprints of the elements that are custom builds, things that are being brought in. All of this takes a lot of time, several trips, maybe a couple of phone calls to confirm that what is being presented is actually going to be able to work. This all happens in that 6 to 9 month time frame. Other things that can be booked during this time, things like your officiant in the 6 to 9 month mark, so that way you can start the process of having a conversation for what the ceremony overall will be in the course of discussing this with your officiant. Whether your officiant is a religious representative or a judge or even a family friend, especially if it's a friend that has maybe never given a wedding service before, it might take a little bit of back and forth to help them round out what the ceremony will look like on their end and really give you a chance to personalize the presentation of the ceremony. Other things that you want to consider booking are your ceremony musicians before you've maybe selected your song choices, which can come later. At least get on their books at this point so that they're not extending themselves to other events on that date, especially if you happen to have a really popular event day. Any sound system that you're going to need to support those ceremony musicians and a mic or amplification for the ceremony, particularly if it's outdoors or even if it's inside in a large space. You want to be sure that those things are being considered right now and go ahead and reserve those again so they don't get reserved out from underneath you for somebody else on the same day as your event. And finally, your tastings with your caterer and your cake baker and also your beverage service. If you're having a specialty cocktail served, now is the time to get on the books a tasting, hopefully around the time of your design presentation. And if you're working with a planner, at the time that they're giving you your design presentation, you can also expect to do a menu tasting at the venue where you're getting married if they also have on-site catering, or at the actual caterer's studio or office. And that should be hand in hand with the overall design, along with a mock-up design of the tables, the chairs, the linens, the place settings, the flowers, the candles, the ambiance of the design that your planner has created. An opportunity to see it in person at the tasting in a prototype form really gives you a well-rounded view of what this overall design is actually going to look like when it comes to life. This is an essential part of the process, having this opportunity to look at a prototype as a client, and it might be your only opportunity before things get fully committed to really take a close look at what each one of these elements means when they come together all in one and you're able to view it in context. This is so tremendously valuable, and this mock-up opportunity in viewing your table design as a prototype really is a dynamic opportunity for you and your planner to really make sure everybody's on the same page. These often happen in conjunction with or alongside the tasting of the menu that you're going to be having for your event. And again, this happens right around the 6-month mark, so you want to be sure that you're scheduling these a month or two before the date that you actually are targeting to have happen. What's often the case with destination events is we like to schedule this meeting on a trip where you're in town 1 to 2 days during the week, where you can come in and do a trip at the location where your wedding is going to take place, conduct the tasting. We'll also do the prototype at this tasting as well while you're in town, and we're going to run through everything together that we can do in person, considering this is your last opportunity to really be in town before you travel in for the week of your event. And then once the 6 months is up, you will be in a really good position with your planning process because you will have gotten through the lion's share of the work on the design aspect of things. You'll have booked all of those vendors, make sure that you're reserved on their calendar. You'll have tasted your menu, you'll have seen their design presentation, and made all of your commitments to your creative team of suppliers to really make your vision come to life. This is where the rubber meets the road, and it's the most exciting period for the engagement process, in my opinion, when I see the clients' faces as they leave the series of meetings at the end of the 6 months, and they really feel at ease with how beautiful and wonderful the guest experience is going to be. There's no better feeling of expression than the hospitality of well thought out plans and execution. Now we're 4 to 6 months out from the event day. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to make sure that all of your wedding party attendance attire has been ordered by now. So at this point, you want to be sure that all of those orders have been placed to be sure that no one is left out in the cold, missing their attire pieces that are essential for the day. The other thing that's really critical to happen by this point is the invitation design. Typically, you want to be sure that invitations, especially for destination events, go out in the mail no later than 8 weeks out, but preferably around 10 weeks out. It takes a lot of time to actually design and then produce the paper products for your wedding day. You want to make sure that you're allotting enough time to actually get the design in hand with your stationer, talk to them about all the pieces, get your wording right. This is a critical piece that tends to take people longer than you would expect, and then have your stationer work up a proof to get approved and revised at least one round, maybe as many as 2 times before you go into production on the actual paper products. Once those paper products go into production, it takes a couple of weeks. Again, you might have added some last minute addresses at this point before the invitations go out. And then the target is to get these in the mail at the 10-week mark. Calligraphy also takes some time. So you want to be sure that you're doing this in advance enough to give not only your stationer time to design and produce the invitations, and have your calligrapher do all of the hand addressing for the invites, then get in the mail to be in guest hands at the 10 to 8 week mark out from the date. Now's the time at the 4 to 6 month mark to start this process, especially because you've already had the design presentation at around 6 months. Now we have a visual piece to share with your stationer about what the overall touch points for the event will look like in other areas to make sure that the invitation design is as cohesive as possible. It is the first touch point that all of your guests will have in their hands for your event day themselves. You don't want to overlook the importance of the invitation design throughout this process, and now's the time to really start thinking about that and get to work on it. Next, we're looking at 3 months out from the big day. What do you need to do now? You want to be sure that you're scheduling your second fitting by the 3-month mark. That way you're going to give your tailor enough time to really finalize the very best fit for you for your day of attire and for your partner as well. So that way you get it back in time to try it on one last time before the big day in case there are any last minute adjustments that need to be made. Now that invitations are underway, you also want to design any other day of paper products or personalized items like napkins or takeaways for the day, other elements that might be personalized to really round out the guest experience. At the 3-month mark is a really good time to make those orders be placed so that way you'll be able to receive them in time, well in advance of the day of. If you're doing welcome bags or boxes or any kind of hospitality piece for your guests that are arriving in from out of town, now is the time to figure out what those items are going to be. And again, any itineraries or paper products that are going to be included in that, and any calligraphed personalized tags for these boxes, this is the time to figure those pieces out. You'll also want to be sure that you've already booked your flight into town for the destination where you've selected, for your destination that you've selected for your big celebration, and figure out all of the logistics you're going to need to get around town. If you are traveling abroad and your renewal for your passport is coming up, you want to be sure that your passport is not about to expire within 6 to 9 months of the date of travel. Keep in mind, return travel to the United States or your country of origin is going to be essential here. It has happened before. Make sure you have at least a year on your passport before it expires so you are not held up in travel either to your destination or especially for the honeymoon, and you have all of your ducks in a row. Before the big day. This is 8 weeks. I've already mentioned about invitations. Those are out in the mail 8 weeks out, getting into guests' hands. So you'll begin to receive phone calls or messages excited of people that have received your invitation and are starting to reply. Not everybody sends in an RSVP card, so you might have to hunt some people down. This is where the excitement and anticipation really begins to build among your guests. 2 months out, you're also going to need to be sure that you finalize your song choices for the processional of the ceremony as you walk in and any of your family member or wedding party attendants. And then also if you're going to incorporate first dances into your reception, now's the time to start thinking about what those songs might be and make sure that you run that by your entertainment providers, that those songs will be within their repertoire, or you have a preferred version that you'd like to hear instead. How is that going to be played and amplified, and what is the source for that song? At the 2-month mark as well, on the design side of things, your planner is probably going to be finalizing all of the decor elements based on any fine-tuned details that might have come up in the production phase after the design presentation has happened. So you can expect that all of your final bills will be coming due for your design vendors. 4 weeks out, here we go. It's crunch time. We're in the 1-month race to the finish line here, and the end goal is seeing you down the aisle and then celebrating for your big day. What's gonna happen now? You're gonna make sure that you're receiving all of your RSVPs and tracking those, or your planner is, as those are coming in. You will have scheduled the time for your rehearsal of the ceremony by this point. You wanna prepare for when you're going to be there, who's going to be available to attend with you. Some people might be traveling at the time that you've scheduled your rehearsal, and that's okay, as long as it's not you or your fiance. But you want to be sure that you get that on the books and know in advance when that rehearsal is going to take place at your venue or otherwise, so that you can make preparations and spread the word among your VIPs, the people that you need to be there. You'll finalize any menu and bar selections if you haven't already done that after your tasting, and really fine-tune those catering details so that they can begin to prepare for the guest count that will arrive for your big day, and make purchase orders and rental equipment orders in order to accommodate those details. You'll be receiving and tracking RSVPs. That's a really exciting time. I love this part of the planning process when we send out all the invitations and the RSVPs come pouring into our office and we get to keep track of them on our spreadsheet. I'm such a nerd for Excel. Other things that you'll need to do is apply for a marriage license within 30 days of your event date if you are choosing to officially get married in the location. And again, we'd really recommend that you consider getting officially married wherever you and your partner currently reside, because it just streamlines streamlines the process and makes things a touch easier on you to make sure that you are really officially legally married in the place where you actually reside. Next, one of the other things that you want to be sure to take care of in this final month right before the big day is to schedule all of your beauty and hair appointments that you need to prep for the big day. So haircut and color if that's what you need to do, any facials or special appointments that you want to make to be sure that you are looking your best. You want to take care of in the month before. Don't schedule it for too close to the wedding date itself. Now's the time to be scheduling those appointments and get those off of your calendar. Your planner will be drafting your production schedule for the day of, the very detailed timeline that's going to run through every little bit, minute by minute, of how the day of is going to take place. That you should be receiving in draft form before your final details meeting the week of the event. And then draft a packing list for your destination wedding and then the honeymoon after if you're going to honeymoon right after the wedding itself. Start pulling together all of the items that you know that you're going to need so that way you can continue to add to this list and you don't want to leave anything behind that's going to be an essential necessity for your travel needs. Then finally, 2 weeks before the big day, it's finally here. All of your RSVPs should be in, except for those pesky few that inevitably happen where you have to call and find out if these guests are actually coming. 14 days out, your head count is going to be due to your caterer. So you want to be sure that you have gathered all of those RSVPs and are lining them up so that you can relay this information to your caterer who's going to rely on that as they're placing their food orders that they're going to place with their suppliers and then preparing the meal for the big day itself. If you haven't done so already, you want to be sure that you have picked your dance selection. So the songs that you're going to be dancing to as a married couple, and if you're going to incorporate parent dances into the night itself, you also want to be sure that you know what those songs are, what version of the song that you want to dance to, if there's a specific one that has special meaning for you. And also you want to be sure that your band already knows this information if you expect them to learn the song and play it live if it's something that's not already in their repertoire, or make sure that your DJ has the right version as well. You're also going to need to draft a formal photo shot list of all of the combinations of the family and wedding party attendants that you're going to need to be sure is captured on the day itself. It's very difficult and you run a high risk of missing a certain combination that might end up being really important to you if you try and wing it and do this yourself on the day of. I strongly recommend sitting down with your fiance and then also running this list by your parents just to be sure that you have all of the family combinations of formal photos taken care of. Relay that to your planner and also give that list to your photographer so that way they can also help make sure you don't miss a very important picture with those that you love. And then also you'll be scheduling a walkthrough of your venue in final form with your planner. If you live in the place where you're getting married, this should be easy to do in the final month before. But if you're coming in for a destination wedding, you might actually do this the week of the event if you have time. Otherwise, your planner is certainly going to have you in good hands because they will have walked through themselves and made sure that everything that is going to be in place for the big day is going to work really well with your venue space. Now we're at 1 week before the big day. This is it. The week is finally here. You're about to cross the finish line. So what happens in this final week before the big day, you ask? You're going to sit down and schedule your final details meeting with your planner. And what's going to happen in this meeting is you're going to run through the run of show, the production schedule timeline that they have created for the day, the minute by minute, play by play, so you know exactly what's going to happen and when. And this is a great opportunity to invite your parents if they want to be involved and know what's going on, and also your fiance. Because inevitably they're going to have questions about where they need to be and when, and they might not be as involved in the planning process as you. So this is the first time they might be hearing some of this information. You want to be sure that they're able to attend as well. So that way they're not asking you a ton of questions the week of the event when you're trying to think of other things. You'll want to apply for your marriage license if you haven't already. As we had talked about in the month before, in 30 days out from your event date is typically when you can start applying for your marriage license if you happen to be getting married officially in the place where your destination wedding is. But again, we highly recommend doing this at home officially, so that way you don't have to worry about any of the red tape process that could hold you up when you're waiting to get that official marriage license in the mail from a place where you don't live. You'll also be getting all of your final payments to vendors lined up. For those that you haven't paid already at the 30-day mark, you will get checks and cash. For those vendors that only accept that on the day of the event, there are a few odd ones occasionally, like bands or musicians. You'll want to be sure that you're lining all of these payments up in sealed, labeled envelopes for each of the vendors. The ones that are requiring payment the day of the event, it's typically cash payments that you're going to be making to certain vendors that only accept this on the day of the event. So be sure that you get this all lined up in advance, labeled, sealed envelopes. Hand those off to your planner, who will distribute those on the day of the event, so you don't have to worry about it. Also, any vendors that you have to tip, this is a good time to include those tips in labeled and sealed envelopes as well, and hand those off to your planner so your planner can take care of distributing those tips on your behalf. And you don't have to. Your planner is going to be confirming arrival times and delivery times with all of your vendors, so you don't have to worry about that. But just know that this is also belt and suspenders. It's going to be confirmed this week. It will have been discussed weeks prior, and it will have been built into the timeline and the production schedule your planner has drafted based on the contracts that you have supplied to your planner if you've done this on your own, or that your planner has on your behalf if you have a full service provider. And then the day before the big event, you will have a rehearsal of the ceremony, either at the location, if that's available for you to enter the day before your event, or an off-site rehearsal, which is totally common. So you want to be sure that you and your fiance are present for that, and anybody else that happens to be in town at that time. And then you'll go to the rehearsal dinner and prepare to do as many toasts as possible at the rehearsal dinner as you prepare for the next day. That's it for me on this very comprehensive schedule of events that will happen over the course of a calendar year for a year-long engagement. These things are very typical benchmarks. There might be tweaks here and there dependent upon the standard of practice where you are actually getting married. You might have some variety here, but generally speaking, this is going to get you across the finish line for your best day ever. If you found value in this video, please don't be shy and smash that like button, so that way others looking for this information will find it, thanks to the YouTube algorithm and because of your support. And if you're so inclined and you want to see more information like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel, so that way you will get notified by hitting that notification bell of any new videos that come up, as we're going to be posting every Tuesday and Friday from here on out. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around with me this long. I'll see you next time. Bye.